Good evening, everybody. This is Jason Draven, and I'm here to help you guys pick out who's going to be your best waiver wire pickups. Starting with quarterback, as usual, with Broncos and Rams on bye. You're going to be kind of strapped here. You're losing Matthew Stafford this week, which is going to be tough, and Cooper Kupp, as well as Darrell Henderson. Man, these are some big names that you guys are going to be missing out on. So we'll get you started with Week 11 options here, and we'll go into quarterback. It's Cam Newton. Yep, he's back, you guys. He found a team. He's back on the Panthers. 12.6% rostered already. People saw the news and picked him up quick. He has the Washington football team and the Dolphins upcoming. This is going to be his second game. He got a limited snaps last week, and they were all in the red zone where he rushed one in and threw for a touchdown, showing signs of life for Robbie Anderson. This is a huge hope for a lot of people and could easily be somebody who ends up winning you your league. It's just one of those guys that is a difference maker. I'm curious to see how well he picks up this offense and how well he gets it rolling. The other guy has just been rolling like crazy, and it's Mac Jones. 40% rostered. He has the Falcons and Titans upcoming. Tough week in 2 weeks. However, last week he was quarterback 4. He's had 2 top 12 quarterbacks weeks in the past 4 weeks. Pretty awesome. Week 8, 11.68 fantasy points. Not great against the Chargers. He just didn't have to do a lot. They did continue to dominate on the ground. Week 9, he got a touchdown, but he also had an interception and a fumble, really knocking his numbers down to 5.96 fantasy points. And then just last week, he had, like I said, quarterback 4. Currently, 19.92 fantasy points versus the Saints, where he went almost perfect. He had great decision-making skills, 19 for 23, 198 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Man, it was an impressive sighting. But we'll stick on the same team when we move into running backs here, and it's Ramondre Stevenson. 29.1% rostered. He has the Falcons Titans upcoming, and over the past 2 weeks, he has just been exploding off the page. This rookie really seems to have it under control now. Granted, he is a second year, but it's just one of those things that he continues to do work. Week 9, 10 carries, 62 yards. Okay, pretty solid day. 6.2 yards per carry, 2 catches, 44 yards, putting him over 100 scrimmage yards, 12.6 fantasy points versus the Panthers. This past week, 20 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also added 4 catches for 14 yards for 27.4 fantasy points versus the Browns. This is a Browns run D who has just been phenomenal, and granted, Ramondre had a lot of the carry because Harris was still in concussion protocol, but even with Harris on the field the previous week, he's been just a monster. We'll move into the next guy, and he's still here. It's Devonta Freeman. I know, it's not a pretty name, but he is a Ravens running back. He is the lead Ravens running back behind Lamar Jackson. He does have the Bears, great matchup, and the Browns, not so much, and has just been a solid fantasy getter for you guys. 12.9 fantasy points, week 7, 16.3 fantasy points, and his past week where he just was horrible, 8.8 fantasy points. He's still putting up decent numbers, so it's something to keep in mind. We'll move into a wide receiver. Guys, I don't know how many times I have to tell you, Rashod Bateman is the guy you want to have on your team. He has the Bears and Browns upcoming. Another Raven, I know, can't help myself, but he's really emerging. He continues to have success. Week 7, 3 for 6, 80 yards, 11 fantasy points. Week 9, because it's after the bye, 5 for 8, 52 yards, 10.2 fantasy points. This past week, when they were just getting destroyed, in the time that he needed him, he was the one who really stepped up. 6 for 8, 80 yards, no touchdowns, but 14 fantasy points. Okay, since his bye, he is wide receiver 17. I don't know why we're even looking at this as an option, but he is somebody who is too widely available, and we need to get this fixed. Because at some point, he's going to find an end zone, and it's going to be an even bigger week. The other guy is coming off of a bye, and it's Sterling Shepard. 49.3% rostered. A lot of people dropped him. He has been dealing with injury. He has the Bucks. Bad secondary. They continue to struggle there. And the Eagles. Week 6, 10 for 14, 76 yards, 17.6 fantasy points. There's not even a touchdown. 4 for 7. Week 8, 25 yards, 6.5 fantasy points. He's going to continue to see the targets as he is the guy that Daniel Jones really seems to trust. And granted, I do think he is going to be back off this hamstring injury, and he's going to be a huge asset for your team. We'll move into tight ends, where you know you're going to hear about my boy week in and week out, and it's Pat Freiermuth. This past week, with Ben on COVID IR, week 10, 5 for 9, 31 yards, 6.1 fantasy points. I know, it's not great, but that was with Mason Rudolph. I mean, he is just one of those players that continues to have a good target share, and he's still over a 75% catch rate. He's somebody that you want on your team, and is going to be a valve for whoever's there. Speaking of valves, we'll go to the only guy who seems to have the trust of Trevor Lawrence here, and it's Dan Arnold. 28% rostered, has the 49ers, who are just bad against the tight end position, and the Colts, also pretty bad against the tight end position. Over the past 3 weeks, though, he is tight end 3, and he isn't scoring touchdowns. It's just the fact that he continues to put up yardage yardage and have a lot of receptions. That's all you have to do as tight end, and he's having so much success doing it. We'll move into defenses here, and it's the Dolphins. They're 15.5% rostered. They have the Jets. Hey, you heard that. That's why you want them. They have the Jets. But over the past 3 weeks, they're the number 3 defense in fantasy. Week 8, not great. -1 fantasy points versus the Bills. Week 9, 18 fantasy points versus the Texans. And you think, oh, it's the Texans. You can see that happening. Okay? Week 10, just last week, 17 fantasy points against the Baltimore Ravens. This defense seems to have finally figured out what they're going to do, and it's relying on their defense to get it done. We'll move into the last defense here and really wrap it up. It's the 49ers. 47.6% roster. Pretty high rostership percentage there. But they have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, like I said, just continue to struggle to find the end zone. Week 7 for the 49ers, 6 fantasy points versus the Colts. Week 8 against the Bears, 6 fantasy points. Now, week 9, they really struggled. -2 fantasy points versus the Cardinals. And I'm sure that tonight versus the Rams, they are also going to have their hands full. So I would not expect them to put up great numbers tonight. However, they should have a lot of success for next week. And as we wrap this all up, I hope you guys make sure to subscribe on the Patreon, subscribe to the YouTube and Twitch channels, and as always, remember to keep up the nonsense.